Day 1 of the November 99 7-day retreat in Springwater. Usually on the first day, we talk about listening. A fresh kind of listening, different from our habitual way of listening. Different because it is open, not hemmed in by ideas of what should be or shouldn't be. Discovering what actually is going on within ourselves. The thinking, the feelings, the paining and pleasuring, the resisting, willing, wanting, fearing. Discovering it freshly. A new touch with what is going on in a human being from moment to moment. And also open to what goes on in other people. Their feelings, their expressions of pain or resistance, anger or joy. Can we do that? Is that possible? To be sensitive, not just to what goes on in oneself, but what goes on in the people around us. A space unfolding where this can take place. The unfolding of sensitivity. A new sensitivity to our own thoughts and motives and yearnings and fearings. And that of other people. Without judgment, is that humanly possible? To listen without judgment? This is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. Just to see it for what it is. When we see things and movements of the body-mind for what they are, they speak for themselves. They don't need any imposition of judgment. Angry thinking, angry body movements, internal anguish, internal wanting or pleasuring speaks for itself. It does not need to be categorized. It's self-explanatory, so to speak. And to observe the incredible drive and tendency to judge, to evaluate, to compare. Me with you, him with her, them with us. And all of those movements of comparing and evaluating, leaving this colorful, rich field of happening as it is. from moment to moment. Our listening has been trained to be linked up with judgment, with knowing, with remembering. This is through schooling, but also the brain itself has these inbuilt mechanisms to associate, remember, know. For the sake of its own security, it has to know what something is, even if it be mistaken, because what is seen now is not what was seen and remembered in the past. It's different, it's fresh, it's a new thing. But for convenience and survival's sake, the brain knows it already, so it doesn't have to look too hard every time and find out freshly. This is what retreating is all about. To take a second look, a second listen, a second touch, experiencing, beyond what we already know. And for that, this imposition of the known has to come into awareness, which is not easy. It's so taken for granted, it's so habitual, so that we believe what we see is what we know, or what we know is what we see. Right now, the sound of wind, wind and trees and rafters, the sound of it, the presence of it, with these words and with the breath. You feel your breathing right now? Maybe a deep one, a quiet one, a hidden one. Is it there? Palpable, experienceable, right here? The breathing alongside the wind. The bright light of sunshine. The colors and patterns on the floor. Thinking that may be going on. Movement of people, breathing. All of us are breathing. Heart beating. The warm body, maybe tingling with energy or aching with the lack of it. Can it be here as it is? Heard and felt for the first time? One knows not how. Distant hum of an airplane, or whatever it is. It need not be known, but is it here, together with the breathing? If thought doesn't say that's the airplane and this is the breathing, then there's no division. If thought says this is the breathing and outside is an airplane, then it's separate, inside and outside. Inside and outside arises with thinking and verbalizing and knowing. But in an instant of not knowing, where could there possibly be any separation? Any here and there? Everything that is here. Sometimes we talk of seeing seeing without knowing, sometimes about listening, a listening space unfolding, a listening sounding space unfolding. But it is not, these words are not restricted, as they seem to be, to their particular senses. Listening is not restricted to the ears, and seeing is not limited to the eyes. It is rather this whole body-mind being one listening, one eyeing, one feeling, one experiencing without division. So if one particular word fits better into your way of talking to yourself, listening is easier than looking or feeling, it doesn't matter. As long as it doesn't become specific and restricted and divided off from the rest of this organism, which is not divided from the air and the sky and the earth and all the sounds and sights that abound. One of the very last days of his life, Kyle was trying to follow through verbally, it seemed, what connectedness is. And he started very simply. He wasn't addressing me particularly, he was just talking to himself, maybe, exploring. I'm connected to the bed to the floor to the house. I forget these things, that I didn't write anything down. But on, and then he sort of halted and said, there must be a connection in a deeper sense. Not there must be, there is. There is. But we come to that by following something through and realizing we're not getting any place. Is there a deeper connection? And keep that question alive if it churns around. Not try to answer it, because that answering stimulates the thinking apparatus, and that is indefatigable in trying to pour out more printouts of what could be connected to what. Come to a halt and wonder whether there is a deeper connection than what has been thought about and verbalized and what is known. That is a restricted, very superficial, restricted area of the human body-mind, this knowing. And coming to see this isn't it, this doesn't exhaust it, this doesn't plummet to the very depth, is the first step. Stopping and not knowing and wondering with a question maybe, is there a deeper connection? That is really the essence of all spiritual questions. What am I? What is the sense of my life? What is God? What is death? To ask it sort of into darkness, to ask it into the darkness of not knowing, and deeply understanding the futility of trying to figure it out. We have to come to that. Maybe in our last few dying days, to experience the pain of confusion through trying to figure things out that cannot be figured out by the thinking brain. And letting up on that endeavor naturally. The wind blowing around the house and through the branches. Sunshine pouring in, one sunny day after another. How do we deserve this? I was walking down or up Carney Hollow, and an old man was taking his papers out of the box and said hello. He was limping, a little bit bent over. And he said, "Nothing to complain about today, is there?" I said, "No." No. He was looking at the sky for a moment. We were both. That sunlight in a blue, blue sky. So, how do we listen right this moment? Do we think we have to learn it, we have to make an effort, somebody has to tell us how? Or can that just be, how to put it? A quieting in not knowing how. Allowing, letting everything be here that's here without knowing it. No need to name it. That's another thing Kyle was struggling with in the last few days. Names. Names he couldn't think about, or names he wanted to find. A new name for himself. Came up with the word Bucktoothed one night. Just rambling on. But also seemingly feeling relieved when told that there was no need to struggle for names. Because there is ultimately no name for anything. Even though in talking we kid ourselves as though the names were the things or the people. What are we? Lets it sink in, wondering what we are without a name. And we have thousands of names for ourselves. Descriptions, characterization, attributes, imagery, what we want to be like, what we want others to see us as. And the prison of that, incredible prison, conditioned into our lives, all the names of ourselves and others, making a sorrowful world disparaging of our sex, gender, ethnic, nationality, family, you name it. How quickly can we come to when that happens? A hurt over being called something, hearing that somebody has said such and such about me, and the hurt. How quickly can we come to? Sometimes not at all, and carry this thing on and carry it among the people and tell them what they called us and find other people to sympathize with us, feel sorry for us, or hate those people who did this. Or wake up to the fact that it's just name, sound, fuzz, foam, unreal. While the sun is pouring in through the windows and warming the face and body. So, let that go for any hurt. Usually we help each other nurture our hurts by supporting each other, consoling each other, comforting, or aligning ourselves with someone against someone else who hurt us. Can we also begin to help each other understand hurt in a new way? Wonder, why did I get hurt? Not take that hurt for granted, that it has to happen and shouldn't have happened and needs to be avenged or rectified or whatever, or the movement, or carried as a grudge. How can we help each other, or can we help each other? Not just support each other when we're hurting, and sometimes it's helpful as a first band-aid or crutch. But what's much more significant is to find out, why did I get hurt? Why this mood? Why this darkening of the mind? The aching. What happened? And trace it. Ask for help in tracing it if you can't do it yourself. Not for support, to nurture it. And when we'll find the resistance, we want to persist in our hurts and not give them up. Amazing. Oh, it's twofold. We want to be rid of it and we want to hold on to it. That's how our life proceeds. Holding on and wanting to let go, and not being able to let go because we want to hold on. To bring this to light, to witness it directly with a new listening, looking space, a new experiencing space, which has lots of room for other people. And if you wonder, well, how can I make some room for other people? Just watch how self-concern, self-pity, self-worry just seems to fill all the space to the brim, or rim, brimful to the rim. And if you notice that you're totally occupied with yourself, that's the first step. It's always the first step to notice what's going on. Not to want something ideal, but to be in touch with the pressure and claustrophobia, if you will, of self-concern, self-pity, self-justification, self-importance. or the opposite, self-unimportance. How poor we are, how unintelligent, how this, how that. Both of it seems to fill up the whole space there is. Down on oneself, up on oneself, positive and negative, filling every nook and cranny. And noticing it and wondering. Not I shouldn't be like this, but wondering about it. There's already a little space for wondering. It creates its own space. Wondering not just how we are feeling, but how others are feeling. Not as our duty. It's all right if one sees it as one's duty. It's more helpful that one doesn't feel this duty. But it's not just dutiful. It's natural to live spaciously, in touch with the environment of people and things and trees and sky and wet earth. That's why it's such an unspeakably fortunate thing for us to have this place. A little bit in the middle of nowhere. Of course, there are houses and there's a road crossing. But it's pretty empty when people come from abroad. I remember one person from the Netherlands. She stepped on our balcony of the house and she couldn't believe that this was unoccupied land which could belong to somebody. So, here we have lots of space and hills, distant hills, on and on. And today, hardly a gunshot. The hunters must have gone someplace else. In this space that one can come in touch with, everything has room. And there's always room to spare. It'll never be filled. So, can we hear the sound of listening space all around us, inside us? So full and so empty. So rich and so poor. So present. There's no one to own it. There's no one, there's just space. And caw-caw, and a window crackling, breathing, whatever. One time, it just occurs to me right now, I have to relate it. Kyle at times was delirious, maybe from the medication, the morphine, or a combination of things we tried to do for him. So I mentioned last night already that these fantasies at times had not much anchorage in what we call reality. One time he asked me, do we have sliced turkey or sliced chicken? In the refrigerator I said, no, we don't, but I can ask someone to bring some. He said, what do you have? I said, we have different cheeses, some smoked salmon, which sort of kept me alive during these days. He said, well, get bread and make sandwiches. And get some paper. He had once from a school that was closed up, he had brought home a roll of packing paper, which is still hanging in our basement. He remembered that roll. He said, cut about a foot off of that roll and cut that piece into 3 pieces and wrap up these sandwiches. At first I had a little bit of resistance. But I went along with it. It was not asking very much. And then he said, give these sandwiches to all the hungry people in the street. And keep making sandwiches for all the hungry people in the world. And he kept on with this. Well, I never made more than 3. And he let up on it eventually. And we were thinking how his mind produced things. And yet, it could have produced any number of scenarios. Terror for himself, fear, anger, violence. So it was a very sweet and touching things which set the tears rolling for me, that he was thinking of the hungry people and wanted to feed them. With sandwiches, wrapped in brown paper, from a school that was closed decades ago. We will end here for today.